Hello, true believer. Today we're going to go through how to do your Scratch assignment. So to begin with, if we open up Google Classrooms, if we go down here to the project tab and then the project game, you'll find a link to all the documents that you'll need to know for this assignment. So first of all, here's the link to the PowerPoint that I'm about to go through. The next thing of interest would be the assignment task sheet, which is here. So this is the assignment task sheet that you guys need to sort of follow through, have a read, if you're not quite sure of the different things that need to happen. You've then got the work booklet, which is this one here. So this is the work booklet that will have all the things that you need to fill in. A copy of this should be on your drive already. We've then got the process journal template, which will be used for criteria section B, where you're listing all the steps that you've done as you've been building your game. And then finally, you've got your rubric here, which is how this assignment will be marked against. Okay. So that's all the documents that you need to know for this assignment. So to begin with, we open up the assignment, building the game. So you're literally going to be tasked with building your own arcade style of game. Okay, so it's estimated that over 1.2 billion people across the world play video games on a daily basis. So we're going to try and understand why is it such an attractive market. Okay, so using MIT Scratch, we get to use a drop and drag piece of software suite. Which allows you to build without having to know how to do text-based coding. So throughout this assignment, you're going to be investigating, designing, creating, and analyzing your own video game. So some different styles of game that you might be of interest. You can do a shooter style of game, you might want to do a platformer style of game, or you could do a car racing game. It's totally up to you, but please check with me before you start building it, because it might be outside of your skill set. Okay, so you shouldn't be trying to build something like Fortnite. It should be something very relatively simple and fun that users can sort of get engaged with really quickly. Okay, so the assignment structure will follow this design cycle. Section A will be the designing, Section B will be the producing, and then finally Section C is where you evaluate it. And as stated before, there is a work booklet supplied on Google Classrooms. Please use that to fill in Section A and C, as it has all the templates already pre-built into it. Some critical elements that you need to think about while making a game. You need to make sure that it includes images, so these can either be designed by yourself inside of Scratch or found on the internet, but it needs to be copyright free. The sounds, again, you can find on the internet, or you can use Audacity to create them, or use the Scratch built-in ones. A clear goal to your game, a title page welcoming players to your game, instructions detailing how to play your game, an appropriate ending to your game, and then a copy of your game needs to be shared online for viewing, and also for me to have a go so I can mark it. So the most important slide of this PowerPoint is the next one, okay? When building your game, make sure you're using tutorials as a starting point, okay? So there's an old famous saying, don't reinvent the wheel, okay? So with this, someone out there has already built a version of Flappy Bird, okay? So it's up to you to have a look at it and reference it as you're building it. So what I would suggest doing is, if you want to build something like Flappy Bird, you need to look up for a tutorial that matches that and then reference how you've changed it inside of the process journal as you've been going through it. So how do you find these tutorials? You simply type in MIT Scratch tutorial and then type in the specific element that you want to do in here. So you're going to be able to use all the skills that we've learned so far in understanding how to build your own version of the particular game. Like I said, those tutorials that are out there are there to help you build something, okay? And then it allows you to extend on it using all the different things that we've talked about in class. So Section A, students will need to look at 3 games of interest and then create a list of pros and cons. Then they need to create a design brief for the game that they intend to build. They need to create a design criteria that lists the elements, which is like a checklist of all the things that they need to have in their game. And then finally, they need to have a step-by-step storyboard showing how the game will flow from start to end. Some examples of previous projects can be found here on this link, so they'll allow you to have a look around and sort of play in that area, which we've had time in class to do. Some other hints while building a game, if you find one inside those tutorials that you really like, for example, this one is one of my favorites with the jumper platformer. If you click up here on the See Inside Me button in the top right, you can literally see exactly how this person's programmed this game, okay, which looks something like this. So you can then use all the different skills that we've used inside the class to sort of play around with this to try and build your own game from it, okay. So the first thing in Section A is you need to do a review of the different games, and this is the template that's inside of the work booklet. So you have a list of all the images, the colors, the sounds, the fonts, the gameplay, etc. And then you need to outline the pros and cons of each bit of the game, and then a bit of a summary of what you sort of found, what you liked about the game, how you might want to incorporate into yours. You then need to create a design brief. So as a software developer for the particular company that you're working for, you need to create the different theme, focus, or feature. So the design brief is imagining as if you're talking to your client. You need to develop exactly what's going to happen next. Okay. So inside the design brief, you need to have a summary of the problem that you're going to try and solve. You then have the target audience, what the game should do. So what are you trying to accomplish? The timelines, the due dates, outline the constraints and limitations, and any important features. The next step with the design brief, it should only be 2 to 3 paragraphs as well. So it should be very succinct of exactly what you intend to do, and doesn't need to have that much robust detail, in-depth detail. It needs to be robust. That's basically what I want you to do with this. The next step with the design criteria is we can use this AxFM model. Okay, so you might want to identify you might not use all of these. So for me, with software, we're probably only going to focus more on the aesthetics, the customer, probably the function, and the material. So the aesthetics is like how it looks, what's the sort of feel of the game, all the different styles, all the sort of what it's going to basically look like. The customer's then who's going to buy the product. You then might want to list all the different things that has to happen. So how's the functions inside the software going to work? And then finally the materials. So what are the images and sounds that you're intending to use? So to make a bit more sense of this, I've given you an example here. So for your one, you will need to create at least 10 of these. So this is a previous example. So it is a shooter-based game, and then you list exactly how you're going to sort of accomplish this. Okay, so the component is a shooter-based game, basing my game on the shooter games instructions on Skiro, which was a tutorial website. The next one, there would be an easy concept by only adding basic math is aimed at grade 1 and 2. So see how here's the component that you're going to try and do, and then here's how it's going to be accomplished. So you need to basically, if you get stuck, please just have a look back at this AxFM model to give you some more ideas on how to do it. You then need also how to have a third column here, which will be the completed task, which will be used later in section C when you rate the game. Okay, so the component, some hints for the design criteria. Like I said, have the component then list how it's going to be achieved, the benefits while you're describing how it's going to be achieved, and then finally a rating section. When writing how it's going to be achieved, practice using fab statements. So remember that people bind the benefits, not just the features. So you want to know what's in it for me. So an example of fab statement might be multiple levels means that players are challenged, therefore motivated to keep playing. So then we've identified what the feature is, and then we've described why we've done that. Okay. When using digital images, a lot of you have been downloading them off the net. Please make sure you change the background to be transparent so it looks a little bit more professional. So here's a little simple tutorial on how to do that. So in Scratch, you can open up the image like so. And to make the transparent, you need to make sure it's in bitmap mode, not in vector. You then need to click on the paint bucket, which is over here in the left, and then change the void color to be white with the red line through it. Okay, so that will basically make the background transparent, and then you go around and click in all the different areas to make sure that it gets this checkered white and grey box sort of look behind it. Okay, so for example, this bit here is not transparent at the moment, so I could click on that to get rid of it. The 3 fundamental structures of coding you need to be present throughout this as you're building it. So you need to have sequential statements, which pretty much everyone will do. You need to then have selection statements, which are conditional statements. And then finally, you need to have iterative statements, which are loops all throughout. So have a think about that as you're building up your game, okay? And then the last bit then is you need to have your storyboard, which shows clearly step by step how the game's sort of going to come together. Section B, students will then create your game, and students will make a process journal to document the journey. The process journal link can be found on Google Classrooms. And then here's a simple example. So you literally will date it, say what you intend to do, how long it's going to take, and then the resources, and then any images that you've used throughout the day of sort of building it. Okay, make sure this is pretty robust and succinct of exactly what you've done. It doesn't need to be that much detail, just so that I can read through and see any modifications you might have done to your tutorials or how you've used the skills that we've learned in class. Okay, so this is going to help me sort of mark section B to give me an idea of exactly how you thought about the processes as you're building your game. Okay. When sharing the game, make sure everyone's been able to do this. Is you click on the share at the top right, and then they'll give you a link to all the different games that are out there. Okay. For section C, then students will need to review their game against the design criteria. Students will then need to create a Google form to survey their peers. Students then will create a list of improvements for the game, and then finally a final report discussing the success of the game. So with the design criteria, you basically will then need to go through and give each of the components a different rating on how successful it was compared to what you intended to do. I've just done it out of 5. You can do it out of 10. It doesn't really matter. But they need to be sort of honest as to how you feel. So I'll be playing through your game and then going through this and seeing if you've rated it appropriately to what the game was. You then need to create a Google form, which can be done through this link here, or just by doing a quick Google search for Google Forms. You click on go to Google Forms, which will open this up. You then click on blank, which is up the top here, and then it will come up with this. So you can then create a survey for whatever you want to do. You can add questions by clicking on the plus here, and then you can change the style of question up here by changing these around. So you might have short answer, a paragraph, multiple choice, checkbox, drop down, all those different things. And as you click on these different areas, you can change how that's sort of going to look. They need to have a mixture of closed and open, so don't just have short one word responses. And you need to try and aim for about 10 of these questions to sort of come together. So a few quick questions you might have is, what do you like about my game? How could I improve on my game? What features did you like inside of my game specifically? And then you might have a few more things on top of that. Okay. You then email that link out to everyone to get them to fill it in. And you need to have at least 10 questions in your survey before you click send. So the two different ways of doing it is you click send. You can either send it by typing the email addresses of the people you want to send it here, or you can click on the link here, select all the the link here, and then email that directly to the people. Okay, you need to have at least 3 people answering your survey. So in the past, what's worked really well is you get a group of 4. So try and make a team to do each other's survey together. If you get really stuck, you can ask other friends or family. It doesn't really matter who's answered the questions, as long as at least 3 people have answered your survey. After completing your game, you need to look for any improvements to your game, and then just simply list it. So when you finally review your game, you need to analyze the data that you've collected, list any of the improvements that you would like to build into your game, and like I said, if you're smart, you would ask your friends in that survey what they would add to your game. You can also look online to where your game's been published for any feedback that other students have given you, and then finally write your review as honest as you can be. Okay, so make sure it's clear if the project's been a success or not, and then back your statements up with the data that you've collected in the previous parts of the section. Okay. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to email me. Looking forward to playing your games, and good luck.